All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakwadash. Double honor to the apostles, elders, a great millstone who tells us truth and who rule well. A mighty shalom, to the brothers teaching week in and week out. Prophets on the downfall, Esau Edom, as well as the deliverance of the hopeful Israelites on the four corners of the earth. And another mighty shalom to the believers, on the four corners of the earth. The Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, as well as the ones like unto the speckled bird, the ones who like the other nations. To you I say shalom. So with this quick lesson, we're going to go into temporary suffering or temporary pain, because that's something we all got to keep on our mind. Some days we want to give up. Some days we want to do our own thing. Some days we want to, just chill out, but we got work to do, Speaking for myself first and foremost, because I catch myself sometimes want to take a break, getting beat on, from life or work or whatever, life circumstances, but you can't give up, because this thing that we're doing, this life that we're living in right now, it's a light affliction, we could get through this, we get through it every day, so why not keep marching forward, So let's start with 2 Corinthians 4, 16. It says, "For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day." And we get renewed day by day, by reading these scriptures, doing our videos, being out of the world, Verse 17, it says, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and external weight of glory." And that's 100% true, This light affliction that we go through in our daily lives, in this flesh, in these chains of darkness, it's only for a moment, it's temporary. It's temporary, because when Yahweh shall come back, He's going to give us new bodies. We're not going to be suffering no more. We're not going to be going off with no more. We're going to be completely perfect, as well as being our land, We're not going to have to worry about people coming against us or people attacking us. None of that as well. We're going to be in complete peace and safety. Not like that one scripture, going into peace and safety, then sudden destruction, But we're going to be in complete peace and safety underneath Yahweh Shai, It says, "While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen." And that's 100%, That goes into faith, We look into the things that we cannot see right now, but we look ahead, with we're foreshadowing, using our imagination and faith, that the Lord gave us, to see the things that He's promised us, and not looking at things for face value, seeing the things in front of us, seeing that things might not be the best or isn't, isn't good, but things will get better, according to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. It says, "For the things which are seen are temporal." Everything around us is temporal, and everything is going to be on fire, We could get that real quick. Let me just finish it off. It says, "But things which are not seen are eternal." The kingdom of heaven. It's not quite here yet. But we're moving towards it. First we gotta get up out of this place. First we gotta do our part. We gotta teach. I forgot that scripture. Teach, rebuke with all long suffering. We gotta do our part. If you're a prophet, a teacher, you gotta do your part. And if you're a believer, you gotta do your part. Staying obedient to whatever your situation is. Either if you're a wife, if you're a husband, be a good leader in your household. All these different things. But let's get that one precept that's called saying these things are temporal. Manner of conversation. What's that? I think that's in Peter. Yeah, 1 Peter 1:15. It says, "But as Was it 14? Nah, this wasn't the one I was looking for, but this is a good one. But I really wanted to go into this place getting destroyed. Destroying the foundation thereof. I think it's in Malachi. Forgive me. Seen Michael or Malachi. Con. So, not to get off track, but this is the one I want to get. This in Malachi 4:1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave neither root nor branch. This is one of the priests I did want to get, just to provide proof, this place is temporary, and the things around us is going to be burnt up. The Lord said he's not gonna leave the elements is gonna burn with fervent heat. Everything around us is gonna burn, if you're in Babylon the Great, also known as America. So don't get attached to nothing in this place. Do what you gotta do in your daily life, to have good success, like according to Joshua 1:8. Let's go back to the point. What's the next precept? Romans 8:18. Going back to temporary, sufferings. This is Romans chapter 8 and 18. It says, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. And that glory that's going to be revealed in us is those new bodies. That glory that Yahweh Shai is going to bestow on us. Being likened, unto him and the angels. So this sufferings that we go through, they can't compare to the glorious life that Yahweh Shem Shai is gonna, he's gonna give us. He said we're joint heirs, with the Mashiach. This is something that we should be looking forward to, and stop looking at the bad shit in our life. You keep thinking about the negative, you're never going to get out your situation. You're only going to continuously think about the negative and not the positive outlook, Have optimism. And let's get that word optimism real quick. Probably need optimistic, but let's see if this... It says hopefulness. It says hopefulness and confidence about the future or the success of something. Yeah, the second definition, but the second bullet point, it says the belief that good must ultimately prevail over evil in the universe, and that's 100% true. Even though the Lord has balance, he's gonna make good prevail over evil, and we must hold that tight, because this world's gonna get seriously evil in these next coming, moments or years, As we can see, we see martial law coming on the scene. We see cyber attacks going on the rise. World War III is still on the brink. Even though they talking about little stopping wars, with Ukraine and Russia and stuff like that, but it's not going nowhere. The Lord still has hooks in Russia's jaws. According to the scriptures, Gog and Magog. But like I said, we must have optimism. We must have optimism when they roll down on us, Revelations 12:12, when they come down with great wrath. We must have optimism, when they try to roll down on us, to get the chip. We must say no, and we must say deny them, and believe in Yahweh Shem Shai, we must have optimism, because when all them things happen, we pretty much gonna be exiled, from this country in a sense, you're not gonna be known as pretty much as a citizen. You know, you're gonna be known as someone below. You know, all these things is gonna happen. You know, you must be remain optimistic. You know, because faith is all we got in this place. Let's get the last precept. We can finish this out. 1 Peter 5. What verse was that? 10. We can start at 8. Let's 7. 1 Peter 5:7. Casting all your care upon him, for he careth about you. Talking about Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. You know, you gotta stay on point. You know, we gotta remain circumspect in our lives. You know, it says, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. You know, so to get a better understanding, NLT says, stand firm against him and be strong in your faith. Remember that your Christian brothers and sisters all over the world are going through the same kind of sufferings as you. You know, and that's facts. You know, we all go through something. Just a different combination, a different variation. You know, if you part of this truth, you know, the Lord's going to chastise you. The Lord's going to put you in situations, you know, to make you return back to him, or to make you understand what's going on around you, you know, then to make you better. You know, the whole point, you know, of us going through certain things is put us on game and to make us more disciplined, you know, to fight off certain things. You know, so don't think you're the only one going through something. You know, stand firm. You know, and if you feel like you are going through it alone, you know, talk to an Akim, talk to one of the brothers. You know, verse 10, it said, with the Most High of all grace, or the God of all grace, who have called us unto his eternal glory by Hamashiach Yahushua. After that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you. To him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Khan. And we can end off with that 10th verse, you know. We're gonna get our glory, you know, through Yahweh Shem Yahushua, you know, through Yahweh Shai, you know. And after this suffering, you know, it says after that you have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. You know, he's gonna put us back in our land. You know, he's gonna beam us up by UFOs, also known as chariots in the scriptures. You know, what the world ignorantly calls UFOs. You know, which we know is IFOs. You know, we could identify them. You know, we know where they come from. You know, we're gonna get beamed up according to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 5. You know, the strangers of our salvation. You know, that 1 Corinthians 15. You know, changing the twinkling of an eye. You know, that's us being made perfect and established. You know, he's going to strengthen us. You know, we're never going to die again. You know, we're going to have immortality. These are the things we should hope for, and remind yourself each and every day while you're grinding. This is what I do it for. You know, to obtain salvation. You know, to be underneath Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You know, and to make it out of this wicked ass place. You know, I know I'm not the only one that think I'm not meant for this place. You know, I feel like an oddball. You know, but continue to lock in and continue to have faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You know, so Lord willing, I hope this lesson was edifying. I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Shem Yahushua, by Shem Kakodash, Salaki. Double honors to the apostles, the elders, great millstone, taught us truth and really well. And mighty shalom to the brothers and sisters teaching, as well as the believers, you know, the brothers and sisters out there on the folk of the earth. To you I say shalom. Until next time, Kwam Yasharala, Wa Ababa. Soon.